I attended an interview around 16 years ago for an English tutor position. So the moment that I stepped into the interview venue, the lady boss in charge looked at me up and down as though something was not right with how I looked. And I also felt a bit self-conscious about that. After staring at me for like almost a minute, I had to just double check if my pants zipped. Is there something in my teeth? Did I comb my hair properly? Or is my shirt unbuttoned? Or is there something wrong with the way that I looked? Because it was quite unusual for her to be staring at me that long. Yes, interviewers, we want to observe how the candidates appear. So you have like a quick glance, usually about maybe 5 seconds. But this was like close to a minute, looking up and down as though I was like an alien or I had some unusual stuff with me. So I just waited in the waiting room because she instructed me, please wait in the waiting room and I'll call you when I'm ready. So I said, all right, that's no problem. So I sat there and I just observed the surrounding and did a little bit of deep breathing methods to calm myself down. And the moment she was ready, she called me in and she never took her eyes off me. She's constantly looking up and down, scanning like this. I said, yes, ma'am. The eye contact was with me for a few seconds, eyeball to eyeball, and then after that, glance down to my feet, glance down to my torso. So I was wondering, something is not right. And then the interview started, and she just asked me various questions, like, okay, why are you interested? Just the regular kind of questions that you usually have during interviews. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Why would you like to join our company? What do you bring to the table? And throughout asking the questions, she kept on glancing at me up and down. So after about 5 minutes, I got a little bit uncomfortable with what she was doing, the observation time that she was giving to me and how I looked. So I asked her, I said, ma'am, I'm sorry to diverse, but is there something wrong with the way that I'm dressing up or maybe the way that I look? And she told me, say, I'm a little bit concerned. So I was, after she said that, I was glad that I asked the question because it's a concern. It might have, probably if I'm not asked the question, maybe it might have diminished my chance of getting that position. So she told me, she says that, oh, I feel that you might have a bit of difficulty carrying out the task. I said, what makes you say that? So she replied, you seem to be extremely overweight. You're too fat. I don't think that you will have the physical or mental stamina to carry out the job well. Then I scratched my head for a while, thinking to myself, wait a minute, is it an English teaching position or is it a PE teacher position? So I asked her, say, ma'am, can I just clarify, is this for an English teacher position or is it for a PE teacher position? She mentioned, no, it's for an English teacher position. However, I feel that you might not really have the energy to really put in a lot of effort to carry out the task well. For example, you might need to walk from one outlet to the other. You might need to travel from one outlet to the other. And she says that from her experience dealing with people who are overweight and fat does not really turn out well for both sides. In other words, she says that usually people who are fat, they call in sick very often. They can't really carry out their tasks well. They usually need better assistance and help from others compared to people who are fit. And also for the company, because of absenteeism and needing extra help, they can't carry out the task well because of needing extra help to help the person rather than to carry out the task at hand. So I was thinking to myself, I said, it's very discriminatory. I was upset at what she said because to me, there wasn't any problem at all. I was able to carry on tasks very well. Yes, I did have some physical fitness issues. For example, if I were to climb up an overhead bridge, after one flight of stairs, I'll start to pant, I'll start to feel breathless because I was 153 kilos. And yes, I did look quite unusual. Do I mean by unusual? Yes, I had a very huge belly, and even though I'm a man, I did have like breasts because of the amount of weight that I carried. I'm like about 5 feet 10, 5 feet 11, and I was 153 kilos, which was 340 pounds. So I did not carry the weight that well in terms of body type. So I did look a bit unusual. I do get stares when I walk in the streets as well. If I don't have a shirt on top, if I'm just wearing a very thin t-shirt, I look very unusual for a guy. Just unusual because of the weight that I'm carrying. I don't look well. Like I'm too flabby, too flabby arms, flabby body, and I not double chin, but triple chin perhaps. So I I was taken aback because although I did have physical limitations due to my lack of physical fitness, I was able to carry out tasks well. For example, at that point in time, I was already running my business on the side. So if I had presentations, I had no problem standing in front of a crowd presenting for an hour and a half, 2 hours, no problem. I mean, my element, that's what I do best, and I had no problems with that. So I was thinking to myself, it's demoralizing, discriminatory, and in Singapore, of course, I think it's also applicable in other parts of the world. It's also against the law, right? Discriminatory. Any kind of discrimination is against the law. So I just carried on with the interview, and she told me, she says, okay, I tell you what, I'll give you a year, you try your best to lose weight, and you come back after a year, and you'll see how it goes. At that point in time, I already lost interest in the company. So I said, okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for your time. So I left. But my mind was very upset and angry. I was saying, no thanks at all. Nothing to thank you about. It's an unpleasant and a very terrible experience. After that, I went back and I spoke to one of my best buddies. I told him about the whole incident, and he told me, he said, this should be reported to the Ministry of Manpower because it's discrimination. The company can get into trouble. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. I just leave it as it is. I told myself, treat it as a learning experience, and I'll move on. So that was then, 15 years, 16 years ago. But what happened to me throughout the years made me realize that sometimes when someone says something, there can be some truth and there can be a genuine concern about what they are actually saying. Yes, there can be people who are discriminatory and who do not really like you for whatever reasons, whatever biases that they have in their minds. But there can be certain people who are genuinely concerned about something, either you not not being able to carry out the task properly in terms of maybe your health reasons or lack of a particular skill or knowledge, and that in turn pulls down the company because they need to really carry out their tasks well, and you might be holding the entire company back because they need to have somebody in order to cover and to do whatever that you do not do well. So I was thinking to myself, maybe these days when I look back at the incident, I realized that she did have some genuine concern, because in 2021, after my master's, I was back in Singapore, and then I collapsed very suddenly doctors found out that due to severe non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and acid reflux. So my body was unable to function at its optimum level due to the fatty liver and acid reflux. Blood pressure dropped to a very dangerous level, so I collapsed just suddenly out of the blue. And I realized that, okay, maybe sometimes in life we might try to give ourselves affirmations in order to cover up our own shortcomings. We might feel that things are going well for us, but sometimes we might take another person's perspective in order to point us to the right direction. So if I really heeded her words and her, maybe you could say even warnings, probably I should have taken the right steps in order to help myself to lose a little bit of weight, help to improve my physical fitness levels. If I had done that, there could be a chance that I might not have suffered fatty liver disease, acid reflux, and all the other illnesses related to being overweight. But to me, my addiction to ice cream and fast food did not seem like a very huge problem. In fact, when I ate my ice cream and my fast food, I felt even better. I more motivated to overcome challenges. It gave me that rush, that added drive. People with addiction, you know what I mean. When you consume whatever or that is part of your addiction, you feel, wow, a very strong high after that. You can do anything that you want to do. Nobody can stand in your way. So that's how I felt. So if I had taken up the warnings and heeded the advice, there's a chance that probably I might not have suffered like how I did. And I really suffered very badly. I was immobilized for a few days in hospital. I could not even open my eyes to look at my phone for 24 hours. I was just in one position. It was that bad. And it really taught me a lesson. When people say something, sometimes we need to take a look at ourselves, pause and think. Are they being discriminatory? Are they being mean? Or maybe they really are, but is there an underlying truth to what they are saying? If there is, do we need to take steps to help ourselves to feel better by taking some action? Whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's losing weight, a self-development technique. So sometimes in life, when someone tells you something, criticize you, pause and think for yourself before you react. Yes, we can feel embarrassed, and that embarrassment and sadness can turn to anger and hatred even. It's always good to pause and have some self-reflection and just think whether what the person says might be true. And if it is, maybe we should take some steps in order to help ourselves.